any of you. I only came here to escape. But I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Hey there guys, welcome to Steve Cinema. I'm Steve. Today we're looking at Ready Player One, the adaptation of the 2011 book by Ernest Cline and directed by Steven Spielberg. Isn't it any good though? Well, let's start with the plot.
Can you feel this?
Yeah.
It's the only place that feels like I mean anything.
The year is 2045 and the setting is Columbus, Ohio. We're following Wade Watts as he journeys through the virtual reality world of the Oasis, created by James Halliday, a pop culture aficionado, much like myself, who at some point passes away and leaves one final quest for his players, an Easter egg hunt. For those who can find 3 keys and then find the Easter egg hidden in the Oasis, they will not only gain ownership and full control of the game that is the Oasis, but also his $1 trillion worth of stock. Now when you've got a number like $1 trillion on the line, there is of course going to be an evil corporation that wants to get their hands on it. In this case, it is the company called IOI and their army of mindless plebs called the Sixers. Essentially, IOI's plan is to go ahead and throw as many people at any one problem in the Oasis in the hopes of one of them eventually winning and then getting the key. Well, that's the plot, but let's jump into the wins. Yes, the wins. We can't really talk about Ready Player One without discussing the Oasis, and it has been brought to life in a somewhat magical way. In fact, magical is about the only way you can really describe it. It's such a vibrant, beautiful, exciting world filled with so many Easter eggs and references that there's no one person who went in there and picked up every single one. I actually watched a video the other day on another YouTube channel that pointed out over 130 different references that they noticed in this film. Now I noticed about say 90 of them in my first initial watching of Ready Player One, but there were so many that I noticed myself that weren't in this video. So it goes to show that I reckon this might even push close to 200 potential references and Easter eggs to various different eras of pop culture from the 60s right up to even today. There's also some incredible action in this movie as well. In the trailer you would have noted that there's the DeLorean scooting around everywhere and that there's the Sixers all getting in their cars. That is a huge race sequence that takes place, and it's such a fun sequence, and there's so many brilliant pop culture references throughout it going on around it, as well as the cars they're in. I mean, you've got the Mad Max Interceptor, you've got Akira's bike, and of course the Back to the Future DeLorean. The other thing that is definitely noteworthy in Ready Player One is the score and the music. Alan Silvestri has created such a phenomenal score for this. I've listened to it so many times back to back. It's so perfect for the world that has been created. But the soundtrack behind the film is also brilliant. I mean, the movie opens with Jump by Van Halen. It's also got Take On Me by Aha and We're Not Gonna Take It by Twisted Sister, just to name a handful of them. The other thing that's very noteworthy is Steven Spielberg was the perfect director for this film. He brings this childlike quality and nature to a film that also appeals to the adult audience thanks to all the unique pop culture references and the way they are utilized. Yeah, I honestly could not picture anyone else directing this film, and if any future films come off the back of this, I really do hope they get Steven Spielberg. This is his best film in years. Yes, the sins. Ready Player One isn't without at least a few. I'm going to start with the villain, played by Ben Mendelsohn, who just seems to be a villain in everything he gets anywhere near. Must be the face. But I genuinely felt his character lacked real motives. I understand there's the $1 trillion that you could potentially get in control of the Oasis, sure, but his personal motives, I didn't get why he was so angry and driven by what, from what I gathered, was seemingly nothing. The film also has a real Charlie and the Chocolate Factory vibe. I mean, you got the 3 keys and full ownership of this massive corporation for the winner. But I just feel Charlie and the Chocolate Factory did so much better. There was something real wonderful about the way Charlie and the Chocolate Factory delivered it that I didn't quite get here in Ready Player One. Which isn't so much terrible, it's just not great either. The other big thing here is Wade. At least 70% of Ready Player One is spent in the Oasis, and that is where the film is at its best. But there is 30 or so percent of it spent with the people, and that wouldn't be too much of a problem if they were at least enjoyable. And Wade, played by Tye Sheridan, isn't an overly exciting person. I just wish we got to spend a bit more time with him, learn a bit more about him. Like, does he go to school? Does he work? Like, that also somewhat brings me to the world building. How does this world function? I would have loved to have known more about the world on a whole. Like, what's this world in 2045 like? There's clearly big corporations like IOI, and if some of the video game and movie references that are far more present day are to be taken as their nods to the video games in their world as well, then there's clearly big corporations like that in the world as well. But how do they work, and how do they fit in the world of Ready Player One? I would have really liked to have seen a lot more of that touched on. And at the end of the day, you could strip off the shiny veneer that is the Oasis and the virtual reality and throw it in the bin, and underneath it is just a typical teen rebellion story. Much like, say, Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, just to name a few. And out of those few that I've just named, there's at least a couple that are better executed than Ready Player One. And I feel that does come down to the fact the human side of this story and the world building just isn't on the same level as some of these other films. Once again, not necessarily a terrible thing, but it certainly could have been done better. In conclusion, Ready Player One is a stunning film with a ridiculously good soundtrack, phenomenal music throughout, Steven Spielberg's best work in years, and is littered with more Easter eggs and pop culture references than any 10 other films you could mash together. But it's not without its flaws. It does have a weak villain, the world building and the human aspects of the film certainly could have been a lot better, and the teen rebellion story underneath could have definitely done with a bit of elbow grease to improve it. But how does it score? Well, from a critical perspective, there's no denying this film is really well put together. It's got a great score, the cinematography is really nice, Steven Spielberg's done a brilliant job of making this film friendly for children, as well as exciting enough for any adults out there going and watching it. But it definitely has a handful of flaws that hold it back. That said, I would definitely give this movie a B-. That could change in future on repeat viewings, but as it stands, it's a B-. On a personal level though, I had a decent amount of fun with this. I love the pop culture references. It's well worth multiple watches just for them alone. The Oasis it's an exceptional idea, and as a huge fan of pretty much anything 80s, the music was mind-boggling, and I was rapt to see Steven Spielberg get back on his A game. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Yeah, so they're my thoughts on Ready Player One. What were yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's get a real lively conversation happening. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Steve Sinema. If you want to become a sinner, make sure you smash that subscribe button and join the ever-growing army of sinners. And until next time, guys, take it easy.
Like many of you, I only came here to escape. But I found something much bigger than just myself. Are you willing to fight?
Help us save the Oasis.